What no one will tell you about Neutrogena, the #1 dermatologist recommended brand. You want to know how they really got that title? I'm drinking out of this happy-go-lucky mug to try to compensate for the negative feelings that have already engulfed my body. I've been in the industry for 10 years, and I've seen a lot, both in the professional skin settings as well as in the influencer world. But at the end of the day, I am still a consumer first. I believe that people should have access to products that both benefit their skin and match their morals and values. And that's why I dig apart both the ingredient labels and the company politics of different brands to help you make inspired and empowered decisions. And Neutrogena has a very interesting story that most people don't know beyond, oh, that cheap acne stuff I used when I was 12 is still being sold on shelves? Sold on shelves? Sold on shelves? Yes, it is. Neutrogena originally started in the 1930s, but it wasn't under that name, and it was one person purchasing soap from a doctor in Belgium. Around 1970s or 1980s is when the name Neutrogena really stuck, but the brand didn't start blowing up until the 1990s. You want to know why? That's when it was acquired by Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson is a huge company. They're considered a parent company, and you see, just like humans can have babies, so can big brands. Johnson & Johnson is a company of their own, but they also have smaller brands underneath them, and Neutrogena happens to be one of them. Now, when Johnson & Johnson purchased Neutrogena, that's when they started promoting it. You see, Johnson & Johnson is a pharmaceutical company, which means they spend a ton of money on research, on scientific endeavors, and on marketing and advertising. And that is one of the reasons we see Neutrogena all over the place, and why, for many people, their dermatologist recommends it. Now, Neutrogena's slogan is like the #1 dermatologist recommended brand. And this is interesting because hear me out. Some companies say dermatologist tested and others say dermatologist recommended. What's the difference? Well, a doctor could take a brand and chuck it at the wall because they hated it. That is still a dermatologist testing it. It doesn't mean that they like it. Recommending it is when a doctor actually prescribes it to patients or suggests it to patients if it's not a drug that you have to get a prescription for. And you might be familiar with that, especially if you've ever dealt with acne. Neutrogena is always on the shelves. It's always on commercials with ladies splashing their face in a way that would just soak my pajamas and force me to clean up my bathroom for the next 30 minutes. But Neutrogena is also very, very sneaky about how they work with doctors. And I want to make it clear that this is not Neutrogena specific, but this is all pharmaceutical companies in general. Have you ever gone to the doctors and gotten a sample of a Neutrogena product, or the optometrists and a sample of eye drops, or to any other doctor where they gave you a sample of a product to use that you can go buy on shelves at a drugstore? That right there, my friends, is a very, very calculated decision. Those samples were free. The doctor and the doctor's offices may be getting regular lunches and extra bonuses and maybe even a fancy cruise for recommending that. And guess what? The pharma companies, whether it's Johnson & Johnson and Neutrogena or a myriad of other pharma companies, actually keep track of what medications doctors are prescribing, what medications and treatments they're recommending, and they actually send representatives in there to go bother the doctors. Now, I say bother because in the institutions that I am familiar with and the dermatologists that I know and trust, most people hate these sales reps. These sales reps are very bothersome. A lot of the times they're just getting in the way of the doctor doing their regular work, but they have a huge place in the industry, and it's because they are the reason that so many brands are synonymous with certain doctors. You see, pharma companies, at the end of the day, they are a business, and the more that their product or their brand name prescription gets recommended or purchased, the more money they make. So even if a generic product is available over the counter or prescription, they want you to purchase the brand name one. So they're willing to give doctors perks in order to recommend that. Now, if you go to your clinic and say, "Hey doctor, are you sponsored by Johnson & Johnson? Are you sponsored by Merck? Are you sponsored by Pfizer?" They legally can say no because they're not sponsored. But there are some doctors who get paid by these pharma companies, either in bonuses and perks or in actual cash. And there's a couple ways around that. You see, I didn't work at, but I knew an office that got free lunch for their staff every single day. And it's not because the doctor or the lead of the office was paying for it. It's because a pharmaceutical rep would come in and bring them lunch every single day because the doctor prescribed so many of that brand's prescription. That's not technically illegal. It's not technically a sponsorship, but it is a gift. And at the end of the day, that gift is influencing what that specific doctor prescribed. Doctors have an oath that they have to take care of patients in the best way possible. So a doctor should always be upholding that. And while I think that's true, there can definitely be biases by pharmaceutical reps coming in and telling them about these new studies that the company conducted that just proves their product is the best. So the doctor could technically say, I saw the research, it proves that this cleanser is better than all of the others, and that's why I recommend it so much. But again, a lot of times those studies are biased, they're paid for by the big companies, or they're pushed on doctors. There have been instances where pharmaceutical reps will come in and actually ask a doctor to their face, can I get a guarantee from you that you're going to prescribe X amount of this drug within the next year? That to me is shady AF. And there are many doctors out there that feel the exact same way, and that's why they don't push these products. But at the same time, you should know that it is happening. You see, doctors can also be paid as consultants. The pharma company can pay the doctor to consult or do a speaking gig. They could get $100, they could get $10,000, they could get $50,000 for going up on a stage and reading some slides to a crowd. But you can see how this can kind of get messy, and it can put pharma companies in bed with doctors who may not be as honest, and overall it can just cause distrust for patients. Now, Neutrogena and Johnson & Johnson are definitely not the worst offenders here. I want to make that clear that that is an overarching issue with the pharma world, and John Oliver did a really good segment explaining this phenomenon, which you can check out here. But at the end of the day, if we have a system that allows pharma companies to track NPI numbers, to track the prescriptions that doctors are prescribing, and then pressure them to recommend a certain brand, you can see where that's an issue. And if you've ever watched TV, you've seen 150 different drug commercials about a 17-hour erection, or about ringing in the ears, or potential death, which, yes, could be side effects, but you do have to understand that that is a pharma company paying for an advertisement. Neutrogena got to being dermatologists' #1 recommended brand for a similar reason. They do have some really good products, but they also have some really good reps. And the other thing is that Neutrogena is great on education. They always fund new educational endeavors, they always support doctors who are doing research. Full disclosure, I did a medical speech as a volunteer that was partners with the Journal of Cosmetic Dermatology as well as Neutrogena. So again, I was not paid, and all of the other doctors and medical speakers were not paid by Neutrogena, but Neutrogena did help fund this overall message of education. And so you see, on that end, Neutrogena is really great about supporting information and the education when it comes to skin and skin health. But at the same time, Neutrogena gives away a lot of free samples. Any doctor or nurse can log onto the Neutrogena medical portal and literally just request samples. And I've seen boxes, literal gigantic boxes of just Neutrogena oil-free acne wash or the hydrating moisturizer. They come in thousands so that doctors can just give them out willy-nilly, and a lot of times they benefit patients. But then we have to actually start talking about the products. What are the Neutrogena products all about? Do they actually work, and are any of them right for you? Neutrogena really is the acne starter pack for the late 1990s and early 2000s kids. One of their most popular products that I was most familiar with was their Neutrogena oil-free acne wash. This is basic as hell, but it's also priced right. It's like 10 bucks. And it does have the highest legal level of a proven acne fighting ingredient. That's 2% of salicylic acid. But that's pretty much it. It's also got some fillers in there, it's got a little bit of aloe vera, but overall it's a cheap drugstore option that some people have found can reduce their mild to moderate acne. And that is important, that consumers have inexpensive choices that they can pick up while they're getting their groceries. You know, the broccoli, the tomatoes, the cereal, maybe even the popcorn if you're that kind of person. And overall, this is a good product for people who are just dealing with their first breakout, but it does have a fragrance and some dyes in there that could be irritating to the skin. And overall, the formula can be pretty drying on people. It can cause kind of itchy, irritated skin. And when you have acne, that's the last thing you want. Again, happy that it's there as an inexpensive option for consumers, but overall, not my favorite choice. They're a very clinical, inexpensive line, and this product shows it. This was also one of the first products that I ever tried for my acne, because back when my face was exploding in my teenage years and I was working my way through those 24 dermatologists who couldn't help me, I started out with the Neutrogena stuff. Another product that I used habitually was the oil-free moisturizer. When you actually look at the ingredients, it's a blend of dimethicone and glycerin, both of which are hydrating and occlusive ingredients. So again, they're basic, some of the ingredients are kind of tacky and gross, but they're also inexpensive. It's under 10 bucks for a moisturizer. And if you're looking for something that is oil-free, if you're not used to reading your ingredient labels or you really don't care as long as it works, it does the job. I do know that that moisturizer also has a little bit of urea. Urea is great because it can kind of smooth onto the skin, and it does help a lot of people, but it's also really low on that ingredients list, and this is basically dimethicone and glycerin put in a paste that you put on your face. Now, one product that does deserve a conversation around is one that also had a lawsuit around it. A $1.8 million lawsuit around it. Neutrogena launched this subline called Neutrogena Naturals, which was really just a bunch of BS greenwashing. It was basically they stuck a green label on a container and they said, it's natural, spend a lot of money on this. First off, I tried the cleanser back before I went cruelty-free. It didn't really work. It wasn't a good cleanser. And on top of that, the ingredients were not that natural. They actually got sued over that. Now you see, natural doesn't always mean better, and everything in our life is made of chemicals, whether it's the air that we're breathing, the collagen that is being synthesized inside of our body along with the help of vitamin C, or the tea or juice that we're drinking. All of that requires chemicals and chemical processes. So chemicals aren't a horrible thing. The only thing is that this product was making claims that it wasn't holding up to. A lot of people came together in this class action lawsuit and sued Neutrogena because they said this product wasn't natural, it has a bunch of synthetic ingredients in it, and technically they're right. There were synthetic ingredients in it, and so Neutrogena had to pay a shit ton of money, and I believe that Neutrogena Naturals is no longer a thing. My biggest beef with that, and I'm a vegan, is the fact that they were blatantly greenwashing. There was nothing green, nothing eco-friendly, nothing sustainable about that product. Yet they were really pushing it as this safe, healthy, natural, eco-friendly alternative, which to the eco-friendly and the natural part, it was not. Oh, but there's more. There's another lawsuit that involves eye damage. But first, let's talk about the Hydroboost Moisturizer. This is a really common moisturizer. A lot of people see it as a dupe for the Tacha water cream. I personally have not tried this, but I do know that it is a watery base. A lot of people seem to like it, and it's really a dimethicone base. And as long as dimethicone doesn't upset your skin, it is an inexpensive moisturizer. I would personally recommend some cruelty-free options. Tarte has their drink of H2O, which is very comparable. And then there's a brand from Sephora, I believe it's called Waterfall, Glacier, Water, something. I don't know, it's in a pink container. Those would be cruelty-free options that for ethical reasons I would recommend over the Neutrogena one, but do know that again, it's another dermatologist-approved line that is inexpensive and available at the drugstore. There's also the Neutrogena Makeup Remover Wipes, which everybody, including myself, loved. They were probably the only makeup wipes that actually got my makeup somewhat off. The only thing is that they would leave a little bit of film on the face. Now, makeup wipes in general have been canceled because they are so unsustainable, they are so expensive, they're horrible for the environment, and they do kind of pull and tear at the skin. But Neutrogena, back when makeup wipes were a thing, their makeup wipes were the ones that would get everything off. And I bet you there is a beautiful butterfly watching this video who uses and loves those makeup removers. I actually worked on a campaign with Neutrogena, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago before I went cruelty-free, and the campaign literally surrounded their makeup wipes as an option to remove heavy makeup such as what you would wear for Halloween. I literally stood in Berkeley, California in the middle of a parking lot dressed as a giant cat and remove an entire face of makeup for this Instagram campaign. You can actually go see it because it's still on Instagram. I'll leave some links below. My content has definitely changed since then, and so has my bathroom drawer in the sense that you will not find these wipes anywhere near me. Again, they do their job, they do their work well, but from an ethical and eco perspective, they just can't be recommended because they are disposable, they are one-time use, and they're horrible for the environment. And if you're young, I guess it doesn't matter, but as you get older, you do worry about pulling at your skin too aggressively or tearing out your own eyelashes, for heaven's sake. And my eyelashes have served me well. I don't want to rip them out of my face with a makeup wipe. Now back to that other lawsuit I was talking about. Neutrogena created a product that was a money-making machine that I abhor. It was literally a product that was made to break, full of plastic. I don't even think it worked properly, and now they're being sued for it causing eye damage. Can you guess what it is? Have you voted? The Neutrogena LED Face Mask. There are medical studies and proof showing that LED therapy can work to help heal skin, specifically blue light for acne. But Neutrogena, knowing this, created this big plastic face mask with a little remote, and they sold it to people out in the open. If you go into a doctor's office or a medical aesthetic office, they use LED light therapy, but they use these big panels, and you are forced to wear goggles to protect your retina, to protect your eyes, because these things are intense. Neutrogena's face mask did not come with those eye safety precautions. What it did come with is a built-in technology that made it turn off and shut off after 30 days of use. Yes, they programmed a perfectly good LED mask to purposefully shut down after you pressed the button 30 times. There's a dude on YouTube who did a great job of fixing his daughter's face mask. He went in there with the mechanics of it and rewired it so that it doesn't shut off after 30 days. But what a horrible, despicable money grab and waste of plastic on Neutrogena's part. Like, that's just disgusting. It's perfectly good. You don't need to throw it away or get rid of it. People paid big money for this, and not only are you destroying their retinas, but you're ruining their pockets and the environment. Obviously, that was a management decision to create a product that was going to make them money. I get it. They're a business. They need income to make cash flow. But in my personal opinion, how disgusting is that? Not cool. And they're being sued for it because, again, eye health. And when you're using LEDs, you should have the proper eye safety precautions. Skincare 101, folks. The other thing that nobody will tell you about Neutrogena, or working with any pharma company for that matter, is how controlled they have to be. I was actually one of the first influencers who ever did a Twitter campaign with Neutrogena, and I've still got screenshots from that experience. What's so funny is that Neutrogena did not even have a Twitter back then. I don't know if they still don't have a Twitter, but back then Twitter was a really important thing, and Neutrogena didn't have one. My manager at the time and I kind of agreed to doing this campaign that was basically like an open Twitter conversation. It was between myself and Dr. Janelle Vega, she's a dermatologist, and it was basically talking back and forth and kind of doing an open question and answer. Now, I'm all about skincare education, so I really appreciate that opportunity to kind of openly talk with her. The problem is that it wasn't as open as I would have liked. You see, I got an email that had all of the tweets in it. It basically said exactly what I was going to say and exactly at what time. So yes, it was a conversation with myself and Janelle, and she is amazing. She is wonderful. I highly recommend her. But it wasn't really an open conversation because everything was scripted. Because again, this was a Neutrogena initiative. Obviously, they pushed their products and they had specific hashtags and campaign hashtags in there. And overall, it was an enjoyable experience. But what people won't tell you is that with any pharma company, there are so many legal implications that go around marketing and saying anything publicly. A legal team has to check everything and check it twice before it can be approved. So people won't tell you this, but whether it was me 5 years ago, or whether it's any other influencer who's working with a pharmaceutical company, everything that's said needs to be checked by like 3 different lawyers to make sure that the pharma company doesn't get sued. So it's not really as conversational or as open as the general public would think, because the pharma company has to cover their ass, and it's true. You don't want to put out information that is incorrect or false, and pharma companies have the knowledge, the expertise, and the duty to put out true information. But that just means that many of the instances that you see on the internet, they've all been scripted. And again, I was happy to post these tweets, I was okay with them, but I didn't write a single one of them myself. This was basically handed to me and said, go have a conversation on Twitter! And Neutrogena doesn't even have a Twitter. Use the hashtag, have fun. And again, that was a great experience. I don't regret it. I wouldn't do it today because of my stance on cruelty-free cosmetics, but that really taught me how deep pharma companies have to dig and protect themselves and really influence what happens on social and approve it with lawyers before it can actually be done. And that is something a lot of people won't tell you. But at the end of the day, Neutrogena does have some inexpensive products. They're really like the starter kit for kid with acne. So does it get the CAS pass? The answer as of now is no, and there's 3 reasons for that. Number 1 is the stance on animal testing. In order to be on shelves in mainland China, products have to be tested on animals or could be pulled off to be tested on animals at any time. And it's 2020, we have better technologies available, and causing pain and suffering to another being like that is absolutely uncalled for. So that sucks. The second is that the products are good, they are decent, but they're not the absolute best. There are some that I would probably pick up again today if they went cruelty-free, but others that I still wouldn't touch. At the same time, I do have to say that I am grateful that there is a line out there that is inexpensive, that is tested and proven by dermatologists, that young consumers have access to. I think that competition in the marketplace is always a good thing. But then third is how some of these sales reps deal with doctors. Again, not all doctors accept this. I would say that Neutrogena is not the worst out there. There are definitely worse pharma salespeople than the Neutrogena ones, and I love that Neutrogena does provide samples so that you can go to the doctor and actually get a sample before you buy the full thing, and I love that Neutrogena really does support education and research financially. But at the same time, the reps who are acting speaking on behalf of Neutrogena or on behalf of Johnson & Johnson can be absolute dicks, can be pushy, can be rude, and can really push the line of when is a doctor taking care of a patient versus in bed with a big pharma company. And again, that is not an issue exclusive to Johnson & Johnson and Neutrogena. That is an issue with all pharma companies who have sales reps in general. The next video I want you to watch is on that very issue of pharma companies paying big sums of money and cruises and dinners to doctors. John Oliver did a great segment on it. And yes, you are leaving my channel. YouTube doesn't like that and actually punishes me for sending you off elsewhere, but I believe that you should see this, so please open it in a new tab and watch it. To help me out so that the YouTube gods don't completely destroy the opportunity for this video to get seen, if you do want to like the video or share it with a friend, it would be appreciated. But overall, check this other video out because it's information that I think that you as a consumer should have knowledge of before making purchases, whether that's prescription or over the counter. If you learned a little something, make sure that you that like button, and don't forget to whoosh that subscribe button if you haven't already. More videos can be seen here, but please go check out the John Oliver one because it is educational and entertaining. John Oliver kind of looks like an owl, and that kind of makes my day. I love you beautiful butterflies inside and out, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video. Love you guys. Bye.